Hi, everyone. So, I wanted to do a special introduction to this episode because this episode had our very first ever guest speaker on it, and it was the one and only Joey Coleman. We had an incredible conversation. Joey is amazing. I wanted to give a quick introduction to who he is and what he does because we just jumped straight into it. We really made use of our time and covered a lot of incredible things that if you are in the pet care industry, if you have a pet care business, I hope you get as much value as I did because it was a truly amazing conversation. If you are not familiar with Joey Coleman helps companies keep their customers and their employees. And if you're in the pet care industry, that is your ticket to success. In this industry, figuring out client retention, so how to keep our clients longer and how to really increase their client experience so that they continue spending more with us, in addition to figuring out how we keep the people we want to keep on our team as long as possible and growing with the business, is huge. Those are the two biggest pieces that are going to unlock you owning and growing a big and beautiful business in this industry. So Joey's work is so applicable to what we do. Joey is an award-winning speaker. He's actually spoken on all 7 continents, which I think is incredible. And he has 2 best-selling books, Never Lose a Customer Again and Never Lose an Employee Again. Both of which, are just so phenomenal and really important resources for our industry specifically. Joey is also doing a workshop at the DogCo Business Summit, which if you are planning on coming, please add on the Joey Coleman workshop. We are literally offering it as cheap as I possibly could to try and get as many people there as possible. Joey is going to be on site live doing a 4-hour workshop. The DogCo Business Summit, if you aren't familiar with it, it is a conference September 20th this year, 2025, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, for the pet care industry, focused on helping pet care companies grow and scale. So if you do an in-home service business, if you are in grooming, training, boarding, anything like that, and you are looking to grow your pet industry business, this conference is for you. I have brought together the best people I could possibly find to help move our industry forward, and Joey Coleman was at the very top of my list. So without further ado, I am going to let you get straight into this conversation with me and Joey. I hope you get as much value out of it as I did. Welcome, everybody. I'm delighted beyond belief to introduce my new friend, Joey Coleman. Joey is the very first guest of the DogCo Secrets podcast ever. So we are starting with a bang, which is amazing. So Joey, thank you so much for being here. I'm just so excited to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm excited to be the first. The secret is out. The secret podcast is out. I'm here. Super excited for our conversation. And thanks to everybody listening in. I know we're going to have an awesome conversation because I have so enjoyed getting to know you, Michelle, and know what you're all about. And just excited to have your listeners and your audience and your friends be able to connect as well.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm so excited. So many questions. So Joey, I know I've shared this with you, but maybe some context to the audience about why I was and am so excited to speak with you today is because of how badly the industry that I am in needs your insight and your wisdom. It's tough out here, small business. And the beautiful thing about the industry that I am in, and one thing I love so much about it, is it's full of people that maybe didn't initially plan to start a business. They had a passion, they fell in love with it. Next thing we know, we are trying to retain staff, we're trying to retain clients, they're bleeding out the sides, and it can be real tough. So one, thank you for the work that you do. And 2, just give everybody a little bit of a sneak peek. Joey is actually doing a workshop at the DogCo Summit, which is going to be amazing. And that is going to be on staff retention. So I actually thought today we could focus a little bit more on the client side because I know that's also an expertise area of you.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I love is talking about keeping and engaging humans, and whether those are the
Mm.
humans that are working on your team or those are the humans that you are serving. I know you're all used to dealing with the dog side of the business, right? Which is fabulous and is great. And I'll defer all expertise to all of you. But the human side of the business is kind of the side of the business that complicates it, right? The dogs are usually pretty easy to wrangle, all things considered. The humans, much more challenging.
More nuance to them. I
They
agree.
do. They sometimes do. And they don't seem to respond to commands or treats nearly as well as we'd like them to.
I will say I'm a husky owner, so there's a little bit of a difference there. He's kind of like a human, but no, I fully agree. So, Joey, what drew you to this line of work initially?
You know, my career, Michelle, has been incredibly eclectic. I worked for the United States Secret Service. I worked in the White House Office of Counsel to the President. I worked for the Central Intelligence Agency. I was a business consultant. I was a criminal defense lawyer. I taught at the postgraduate level. I ran an ad agency. I've had this crazy eclectic career and path. But the thing that tied all of these jobs together was humans. And how do humans act? And why do they act the way they act? And what can we do to convince, persuade, encourage them to act in a way that is in alignment with our goals or our worldview or our desires? You know, I was a criminal defense lawyer. How do I get this jury to find my guy not guilty? When I was running an ad agency, how do I get these prospects to decide to buy this product? You know, when I was teaching, how do I get these students to want to do their homework, right? So all of these various roles and responsibilities that I've had throughout my career were about what drives the behaviors that we desire. And that led me to explore what drives prospects to become customers, what drives customers to stay customers, what drives candidates to become employees, what drives employees to stay as valued members of the team for the long term. And it's all the same types of things. What is the person feeling at this time? And how can those feelings encourage them to take the next step in the relationship?
That is, well, one, fascinating. I have so many questions that we're not going to have time to get to already. So maybe I'll just pick one out of personal indulgence. What has kept you in this work? Like the further into it you've gotten?
Humans are messy. Humans are messy. They're beautiful and they're complex and they're simple
Hmm.
and they're messy. And I think the work is never done. You know, with a lot of the clients I consult with, you know, one of the things I say early on is the job of creating remarkable customer experiences or the job of creating remarkable employee experiences is never finished. And
Hmm.
on one hand, that can feel really daunting. It can feel
Hmm.
really daunting to say, let me get this right, Joey. You want me to spend all of my time focused on creating a remarkable client experience, and then tomorrow I have to do it again? And the next day I have to do it again. And the next day I have to do it again. Yes, this is the joy of getting to be alive. And the
Hmm.
thing that worked a month ago may not work next month.
Hmm.
And we can get frustrated about that. And trust me, when it comes to, you know, being a parent or being a pet owner or being, you know, a significant other or navigating through life, we're like, wait, I learned the pattern. Why can't I repeat the pattern and have it still work? Because we're human.
Hmm.
And that can either be a sense of frustration or a sense of awe and
Hmm.
an ability to say, ooh, how can I get curious? How can I explore? How can I try something new? I think there's a lot of excitement and possibility and intrigue in that. And I try to lean more into that to drive these kinds of interactions and experiences that keep people coming back for more.
Yeah, man, I love that. I was just having a discussion this morning with one of my groups on the intersection of burnout and curiosity, and how when we are in this place of burnout, not to go kind of full psychotherapy on it, but when we're in this place of burnout, it's so hard to approach our team and our clients with that level of curiosity that we need to keep us going.
One of my favorite phrases that I've been using with myself a lot
Mm.
lately is, how can I work to get curious before I get critical?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
so often things happen in our businesses and our lives that we're like, oh, why did that happen that way? Oh, it never should have happened that way. Oh, why did they do that? And it's like, okay, we can immediately go to those emotions, or instead we could take a pause, just a brief respite in the space of curiosity. Well, why did it happen that way?
Hmm.
There's something else going on in their life other than me, you know?
Hmm.
Oh, there's something that I thought I had explained, but clearly I hadn't. Oh, there's something that I know to be true, to be a key element of this project that I never explained to my team that is working on the project. Not because I was intentionally withholding it, but because it is so familiar to me and so obvious to me. And because I've done this dozens of times, hundreds of times, thousands of times, I just presume that they know that this is a key component.
Hmm.
Why would they? They've never done this
Mhm.
before. And I think our
Mhm.
clients are the same way, right? We presume that our clients know what our services are going to be. I'm going to walk your dog. Was that really all it is? No, not at all,
Yeah.
right? We know that. We know it's much more complex than that. But if I believe that most humans are completely overwhelmed, they're
Mm.
completely overwhelmed by the amount of communications they receive every day, the amount of information their brain is required to process, the amount of relationships they're trying to maintain, the amount of followers they have on social media, the amount of podcasts they haven't listened to, the amount of books they haven't read, the amount of dollars they haven't earned, all of these things that are just like, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Someday I'll be there. I need more. I need to do this. I need to move there. And we're so overwhelmed that some of the basic stair steps of, oh, and then the next thing to focus on should be this, and then the next thing should be focused on should be this. It's why I'm such a fan of the work you're doing in the industry of like saying, hey, look, this can be an easy, I'm going to go next door and see if the neighbor will let me walk their dog for $5, right? The kids starting a dog walking business, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That is the genesis story, the origin story of many of the businesses, right? And it can be much more complex than that. And it can be much more
Mm.
multifaceted than that if we want it to be and if we're willing to be curious about that.
Yeah, 100%. Um, so, okay, I want to give some context on why I want to focus so much on client retention today, and it's specific to this business model. And then I want to immediately take us off course of the questions I sent you to ask a question about assumptions.
Perfect.
So, just to contextualize something to this business model, a common misconception that I see some people have about the pet care industry is that there isn't money in it. Like, we're walking dogs, it's $20, $30 here and there. And the reality is they're not wrong if we focus on one-off engagements with the clients that we are trying to attract. However, if we become really skilled at retaining clients, these clients, oftentimes it's not uncommon in businesses I work with that the value of a client can be $4,000 a year, $8,000 a year, if we really figure out how to make our business model sticky and our business model something that people want to come back to over and over again. Going off track into a question about assumptions, what assumptions do you see people make when it comes to retention or to running their business that one, they may not even be aware they are making, and two, just knock them out before we even get started?
I love this question, Michelle, because I think there's so many assumptions we make as humans. And this gets back to the thing we were talking about, curiosity, right?
Mm,
Curiosity in many ways is the antithesis of assumption. Right? Because if we stay curious and we
hmm,
stay interested, we don't get sucked into the pathway of assumption of, well, I know how this works. I think what happens is we have a tendency as humans to be pulled to the transactional,
hmm,
even though our hearts want to be relational. We live in a world that skews and over indexes on transaction.
hmm,
And yet, as humans at our core, at our essence, we're looking for deeper relationship. We're looking for long-term relationship. And I think you're right. When it's like, oh, well, walking this dog is worth $20, that's transactional.
hmm,
Taking
hmm.
care of the most valuable member of this family, because make no mistake about it, most people will tell you. I know plenty of, especially dog owners. Oh my gosh, I love you people, right? Most people, like, if the house is on fire, grab the dog and the spouse and the kids will sort it out. You know what I mean? It's just
Well,
like,
they have
wow,
legs.
really?
Yeah, we have
Yeah, it's just,
thumbs.
yeah,
Yeah.
they'll sort it out. They can open the doors. It'll be fine. And it never ceases to amaze me in this space how much the depth of relation is between the dog and the human they live with. And yet, those folks that are providing services around that relationship think that it's transactional.
Mm,
Not at all.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
so, one of the things that I often encourage folks to consider, especially business owners, is what is the parallel to the business you're in? So, if I go on to Amazon Prime, for example, and I want to rent a movie, it's going to cost me anywhere from $3 to $15, maybe $20 if it's a brand new release that just came out, right? That is a transactional relationship. I'm going to pay, I'm going to watch the movie. When the movie's over, I either had a positive experience or a negative experience. It was worth the money or wasn't worth the money. Juxtapose that against a Netflix subscription, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I would liken maybe a subscription to taking care of your dog, where it's like, oh, I'm going to pay for this and I get to watch the movies when I want to watch the movies, and I get to watch whichever kinds of movies I want to watch. What's interesting about that is a lot of business owners that are trying to get their clients to become subscribers or to become more relational aren't behaving relationally in their own life, but they're trying to sell relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, what's your context? What's your framework? What's your experience with doing this? I talk about this lots of times with employees. You know, there's so many employers who want their team members to deliver a Ritz-Carlton first class white glove experience. And I say, great, I love that. And years ago, I was doing a presentation for a team and I got all their employees together. And I said, the CEO hired me to teach you how to deliver Ritz-Carlton first class white glove service. And everybody's sitting there. I said, we're going to start with a quick little survey. Okay, everyone in the room who has ever stayed at a Ritz-Carlton, raise your hand. And the CEO proudly raised his hand, and the head of sales raised her hand, and even the CFO raised their hand. But no one else raised their hand. I said, great. Next question. How many of you have ever flown first class? The CEO proudly raised his hand. The head of sales proudly raised her hand. The CFO put his hand down and was like, do you know, it's so much more expensive to sit 2 rows further up on the plane. No one else raised their hand. And then I said, okay, how many of you have ever been at a meal where the waiters that brought your food were wearing white gloves? Not even the CEO or the head of sales raised their hand. No one raised their hand. I said, it's impossible to ask our team members to deliver an experience for which they have no context.
Yeah.
So many of the people in this space, I know from our conversations, are in this dynamic where you're trying to have team members and you're trying to have employees who deliver these remarkable experiences. But the question I would ask is, are you treating them in a remarkable fashion? Or are you looking them to just fill a shift? Are you looking for them to just be available? What is the depth of relationship we're trying to create for our clients? Are we creating a parallel depth of relationship with our team members? In many organizations, we're not. And that's a growth opportunity.
Yeah.
So I would say a big assumption is that people assume that, well, because I understand it, everybody else on my team will. Or because I want X, everybody else will want X. Those are some pretty gigantic assumptions that can bring a business to its knees.
Yeah, 100%. I know I shared with you in another call that we had a concern that I've had about our industry is as the world is automating more and as the world is AI-ifying more, dibs, I made that word up.
I love it. There's so many I's in AI-ifying. I'm just so excited. It's like, can I buy a valve, Anna? Yes, I get all of them.
If you see t-shirts at the conference, it came from
Perfect.
this
I will
conversation,
know it came right
everybody.
right here, friends.
A concern that I have had, and I would say like most service-based businesses should be wrestling with this tension, or I believe they should be, is, you know, at what cost can the automation, the hiding behind AI, the systemization replace real relationships in ways that it shouldn't? And I feel like that gets into some of the conversation that we're having about just what does it look like to really build relationship and to anchor that expectation around relationship.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to automation. I'm not opposed to systemization. I'm opposed to you thinking that that by itself will deepen the relationship you have.
That's a really good framing.
Right? I'm not opposed to, I have in my calendar my wedding anniversary. It's in my calendar. I remember what the day is, but it's in the calendar as a subtle reminder in case I'm not remembering what it is to do it. Does that make me a, happy and wonderful partner? No. But is it putting a system and process in place that my assistant knows 30 days before to be like, hey, by the way, see that it's in the calendar. Has anything happened on that yet? Oh, yes, it has. Oh, great. Just wanted to make sure. Now we're using systems to serve the relationship instead of to drive the relationship.
That's an amazing distinction. I fully agree. So when we are looking, so following this thread of assumptions being very closely related to mistakes, I would say mistakes are assumptions in action. What mistakes do you see small businesses make when it comes to client retention specifically? Or is it the assumption that's the mistake?
Well, I think assumption is certainly a mistake. I mean, I'd say the big thing is most businesses over-index on new client acquisition. And they use
Ooh,
that word,
yep, yep.
acquisition, right? And it's just like, oh my God, I want to take a shower. No one in the history of the world loved the idea of being acquired. Okay, that is not something as humans we desire. But they over-index on how do I get more instead of how do I do more with the ones I already have. If I
Mm-hmm.
go to almost any business on the planet and I say, how much money are you spending on marketing this month? Or how much money are you spending on marketing this year? Or what are your big marketing initiatives? What are your big sales goals? What are your sales initiatives? Most business leaders can tell me to the percentage point or to the dollar how much they're spending, what they're focusing on, what they're targeting. But if I say, what are your retention goals? I often get this flippant, well, 100%, of course. Great. What's your current retention at? Well, it depends. That's a beautiful answer for I don't know. That's a beautiful answer. You could have just made it easier for both of us if you said, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't know what your retention is, I can tell that we are over-indexing on growing and selling and marketing instead of over-indexing on creating remarkable experiences, engaging, and keeping. And the difference to me is the difference between do you have a very expensive job or do you have a business?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have a very expensive job if every morning when you wake up, your drive is how do I get more?
Mm-hmm.
You have a business if when you wake up in the morning, you're saying, who am I serving today that continues to fuel this engine that is my operation? And I just think that mindset shift can be huge. And then when we match that with what are we tracking? What are we paying attention to? What are we allocating budget, time, effort, and energy towards? Is when we actually start to see our businesses evolve to what many of us want them to be when we decide to start a business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, entrepreneurs are
Mm-hmm.
beautifully the only humans I've found that will happily work 80 hours for themselves so they don't have to work 40 hours for someone else. And that's great. There comes a time where that's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait to rewatch this for myself. I just want you to know. I'm like, well, there's a nugget. So I have been very open with my clients that my number one mistake in my previous business that I sold 2 years ago was like heavily focusing on front end client acquisition compared to retention. And that is why I actually can't tell you what I spend in marketing right now, but I can tell you my retention is 92%, my churn is 8%, and I track that like the devil because that's not going anywhere.
Nice, nice. I love it. I love it. Well, and Michelle, for what it's worth, you're not alone in that, right? And there
Mm-hmm.
are lots of reasons why we over-index on the chase.
Mm-hmm.
One of which is we're human.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be candid. What's more exciting, dating or marriage? Well, as somebody who's been happily married for 15 years, I will tell you the first draw is the dating. It's new, it's different, it's exciting. What's going to happen? Who's it going to be? What are we going to talk about? What's going to go on? What are we going to order? What show are we going to see? When we get into the more consistent, repetitive elements of a long-term relationship, if we're not driving forward to bring the energy, to bring the joie de vivre, to bring something that's, new or exciting or different or unique, we will, of course, draw into the aspects of our humanity that are just more rote and consistent as opposed to more unique and awe-inspiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to describe it to my clients as one is full of dopamine and one is full of vulnerability, and our brains really like the dopamine side.
So true. So true. Oh, I love that. I love that.
I've at least found in my work that there's a vulnerability that comes with retention that I feel like is maybe not discussed frequently, where it's vulnerable to go back and try and upsell a current client when it's like, but I haven't really asked them about their current experience and do they actually like me? Have they just not made the time to churn? So,
Totally. And when we keep folks for the long term, we increase the number of opportunities where we'll miss the mark.
mm, mm,
And we increase the pain of having the conversation about how we missed the mark. If it's a brand new
yeah.
client and we drop the ball, it's kind of like, oh, well, didn't get that one. But if it's somebody who's been there for a long time and they leave, that hurts. I mean, there's a reason why. People ask me about the title of my book is Never Lose a Customer Again. So I've got Never Lose a Customer Again and Never Lose an Employee Again. But let's keep it on the customer. The Never Lose a Customer Again, the most important word in that title is again. It's not never, it's not lose, it's not customer. It's again, because you can't have been in business for any appreciable amount of time without having lost a customer. And when you lose a customer, it hurts. And we want to avoid that hurt. But the challenge, I think, is many business owners, instead of analyzing why they lost the customer and putting in things that focus on retention, they instead shift their focus to, well, if I just had more of these, if I lost one, it wouldn't hurt as bad. They're making the assumption that the loss is based on the volume, that the volume is causing the pain. The volume isn't causing the pain. The loss is causing the pain. And that's where, if we shift to, what am I doing to retain this relationship? What am I doing to deepen this relationship? What am I doing to keep this relationship? We have a very different metric by which to analyze our actions, our messaging, our behaviors, and the type of experiences we're creating.
Yeah, fully agree. There is so much that humans will do to avoid pain.
So much. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. Yeah. And this is why I love the human condition, right? It's as long as you can do your best to keep coming back to curiosity, humans are undefeated in continuing to do curious things and things that make us go, really? Why did you make that choice? Okay, I would never have made that choice in 1,000 years, but let me try to understand why you made that choice.
So the thread of relationships and of building legitimate relationships. One thing that I think can come up in this business model as a tension point is when owners start to focus on scaling. So they start to focus on hiring and facilitating that relationship through staff and to some degree through systems rather than through themselves. I see a lot of owners, and I'm very susceptible to this as well, where it's like, because I'm so close to it, I can almost like be a conduit to it. I can like kind of distill a lot of experience just through who I am. What advice do you have for retention-based strategies where maybe the relationship is not focused on the owner to the client directly?
Where the relationship is focused more on the client and the provider, if you will, or the team member?
I'd say to the business holistically. So to really creating this relationship with the business more so than like one individual person as it grows.
Yeah. So I think what's fascinating is there's this nomenclature that has evolved in business over the last few decades of, are you a B2B business or are you a B2C business? Are you a business that sells to other businesses or are you a business that sells to consumers? And I find a fundamental flaw with both of those approaches in that you are an H to H business. You are a human to human business. And even though the relationship we're trying to create is with the business, not with the person walking the dog, not with the owner, because they may never meet the owner, the relationship is with the business. Okay, well then how do you build loyalty to the business? You build loyalty to the business by creating a remarkable product that over-delivers on the promise consistently. Very few of us had a personal relationship with Steve Jobs or anyone that worked at Apple. And yet Apple has one of the most loyal fan bases on the planet. Why? Because if you are an Apple customer, you believe that that says something about the kind of person you are. I think the opportunity in your industry is to say, I am the type of person who loves my pet so much that I am a customer of this company, right? And it becomes an identity because it is a lot easier to cancel a subscription or to not book a service than it is to chip away at our identity. So who is the kind of person that cares so much about their pet that when they're away at work, they're going to have someone go into their home, get their pet and take their pet for a walk? Well, the kind of person who puts unbelievable value on that relationship with that dog. And so it's like, okay, how can we make this more about the identity and the relationship and transcend the you're taking the dog for a walk? The product is walking a dog. The service is maintaining the relationship and delivering a care that is not the same as the care that the person who lives with the dog would give, but it's the next best thing.
One of my favorite marketing taglines I've seen in this industry was, of course, now I'm going to butcher it that I said that, but something along the lines of we're the stand-in best friend. Like we're B Squad, but we're really good B Squad.
Absolutely. Yeah. And let's just acknowledge it for what it is, right? And I think the best businesses are the ones that are very clear of the role they play, and they don't overplay their role, but they also don't underplay their role. They deliver on what their role is, bringing it back to Apple. And I use this example, and I know Apple gets used regularly, but it's something that is so common in our lives that we have an understanding of it. Headphones used to always be black until Apple came along and made them white. Phones used to be for making phone calls until they became about listening to music and surfing the web and texting your friends and sharing pretty pictures. And so what it has done is they've transcended the thing that you thought you were buying. And instead, you're buying identity. You're buying a lifestyle. You're buying a worldview when you buy Apple. And the same holds true for Android. If you buy an Android product, you're espousing a different identity and a different worldview. And that's great. It's not my personal one. But if that's yours, awesome. And you embrace it. And you think I'm an idiot for spending the money I spend on an iPhone. And you're thinking I'm crazy for not having a device that can be hacked and tweaked and tooled to work the way you want it to work. I get it. And it's just a different identity. There are some people who will never hire someone to walk their dog. You shouldn't really worry about those people.
Right.
Those aren't your people. That's okay. It doesn't mean they're bad, I hesitate to say pet owners. I don't know what the operative word is because I know a lot of people are like, don't call the dog an owner. It's not an owner. It's their friend. It's the human they live with, that kind of thing. But the other humans they live with, right? It's like, what can we do to respect the relationship and acknowledge the relationship and serve the relationship? That goes beyond just serving the dog or serving the pet.
I have a purely self-indulgent question because I'm so curious about this. I think about this very regularly, both with my business and also just in marketing generally and working with clients. What advice do you have on how to set expectations that are still incredibly attractive? It's a really good offer. People are very attracted to what we are marketing and positioning, but that are appropriately set so that we can over deliver on.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I think as business owners, especially when we're starting out or when we're scaling beyond like just the owner, right? When we're hiring that first team member, the second team, I'd say when we're kind of in that phase, our desire to prove our value is so great that, and again, this is because we're humans, we want to share everything we're going to do. We want to share all the pieces of the puzzle. And the reality is expectation management, again, no one ever grew up saying, gosh, I hope to be managed someday, right? It's like the same people didn't want to be acquired, don't want to be managed. I think it's more about expectation setting and expectation exceeding. And I think what many businesses fail to do is to accurately set the expectations at the beginning while leaving room for exceeding. Like I love going into a relationship knowing these are the 4 ways I'm going to exceed your expectations. I'm never going to tell you. They're just going to happen. It's going to be awesome. But I'm not going to give you a hint about it early on. Now, I may pick one of those to share early on, but the second I share it, it becomes expectation setting, not expectation exceeding. So that becomes the norm. And there may be competitive reasons that you want to make that the norm. Hey, compared to all the other folks that you could hire, we do this thing. Oh, you send a picture every time when you're on the wall. Okay, good. There's proof that you're doing it. Okay, great. Now and I realize that's increasingly become the norm in the industry, but there was a time where that was the icing. That was the special thing. Now it's become the expectation. There was a time, I know I'm dating myself here. Sorry for all you young whippersnappers, all right? But like there was a time when you ordered something online, you paid for shipping. Okay. I know it's a little crazy, taking me back to the aughts, the crazy, 2000s, but it used to be you had to pay for shipping. Then Amazon came along and said, no, we're going to change the expectation. Shipping is free. Now, if I go on a website and I have to pay for shipping, I'm like, really? Come on. You're charging for this? I know they're shipping it to my house. I know it has an expense. I know, by the way, that Amazon is building in the shipping cost into your Prime membership and into the cost of the items. I'm fully aware of how this works. But nonetheless, when I get to the checkout screen and I go, shipping charges? This isn't fair. That's how my body reacts. So when we think about the expectation setting and we think about the expectation exceeding, what are the things that are the ante-up chips to sit down at the table and play the game versus what are the things that make you and your business the unique, special business that has to be part of my life, as opposed to this is something that, I might do for a while. That's when you transcend being a service provider to being a lifestyle deliverer.
I really love that distinction. I'm going to let that one sink in. I love that. There are so many businesses in this industry that are wanting to move to more of this concierge style. It's a discussion point that I'm hearing more and more, or membership style or subscription style, something that really fuels more of this long-term relationship. So I think that is just so applicable. So for small business owners that are overwhelmed, if you had a drawing board with all these amazing strategies, which I know you do, if you were picking one high impact strategy for client retention for the overwhelmed small business owner, what would that be?
I would figure out how to easily and efficiently systematize high touch moments. So here's what I mean by that. I would be willing to bet that whether you are a solo entrepreneur or whether you've got a team of 8 or 10 folks or, a team of 40 folks, whatever the size of your business is, that the great majority, if not all of the people who are showing up to walk a dog, have a phone in their pocket or in their purse.
Yes.
I'd be willing to roll the dice. That is an assumption I am making in this hypothetical, but I feel confident in this assumption.
I can validate it. Right? That's an accurate one.
Okay, good. I appreciate that. You have a phone in your pocket or in your hand that has a video camera on it that is more powerful than the video cameras that were used by network news 40 years ago. You're there with the dog. You have the camera. It's in your hand. Let's just use it. Let's just use it to take a photo. Let's just use it to shoot a quick little video. And then share that with the human that is thankful that you are spending time with their pet that they don't get to spend. And shake it up. Sometimes make it a photo. Sometimes make it a photo in the house. Sometimes make it a photo where they're pulling the leash almost out of your hand and they're running ahead if they've got one of those type of dogs. Maybe they've got the type of dog that likes to get to the park and lay down in the grass and just sit there for a bit. If you've walked this dog more than once, you probably have a feel for what kind of customer you're dealing with in terms of the furry barking kind and what kind of customer you're dealing with in terms of the one who actually pays for the house where the furry barking one lives, right? Play both of those. If it's a high maintenance, I've got a spreadsheet to manage every aspect of my life, skew towards that type of communication with the human. If they're this is my little booby, well then skew towards that kind of communication. Show that you know how they interact with their pet in a way that to your point earlier, we know you're the B squad, but you're the B squad who watched what the A squad did and is trying their best to replicate it. And then I would capture that so that they have digital proof that it's happening. I don't know a pet owner that has ever said to me, I've seen enough photos of my dog. They might exist. I just haven't met this person yet. So some of us are like, really? I'm going to send a photo every time? Yes. Now, don't send the same photo of it walking down the sidewalk every single time, but different photos, different angles, different shots, the lighting. Oh, it's raining outside, so we walked around inside the house. Oh, it's a beautiful sunny day, so we played catch with the tennis ball. Whatever it is, I don't think there are going to be people saying, oh, every single time they walk my dog, they have to send me a damn picture. No, they're going to get the dopamine hit of, I just got to see Fido. I just got to see Rover. I just got to see Princess Petunia. Whatever it is, they're going to be excited about. you can be part of that dopamine hit every time
Mm.
you deliver on the service that they're paying for.
So, two thoughts on this. One, you are so on point. So, I got outed by Apple Cloud the other day. So, Apple started doing this thing where they pull together like grouped pictures and they're like, here's an album with music. And it pulled together one of every picture I have of my dog, which was 412. And it pulled together an album of me and my husband, which had 10 pictures in it.
I love it. I love it. I love every piece of it. Oh my God. 100%. 100%. Michelle, I am not going to ask you on the air if you love your dog more than you love your husband. But as a recovering attorney, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I ask you to look at the evidence count. That's all I need to do. Case
These
closed.
people know who they're dealing with.
Exactly.
These people know.
100%. 100%. Oh my gosh.
I'm so sorry, Evan. We can talk about this later.
I love every piece of it. Evan, you're still loved, just not as much. Just not
Here's
as much.
the
It's
thing.
okay.
We both know.
Hey, Avis, try harder. Number 2, we try harder. That's great. It's just the Avis relationship. For anybody who has a spouse that has a dog, just enjoy the fact that you are number 2. It's fine. Just embrace it. Feel it.
I didn't know it was going to go this direction, but yeah, it is. I love it. The second thing, maybe more to actual business strategy that was coming up for me is I was talking with a client the other day and she asked for my opinion about something and I gave her a piece of advice and she looked at me and she said, I keep waiting for, and I love this client. It was so direct. She was like, I keep waiting for your strategy to blow me away. And it's always a return to the basics that I know I need to do. And I was like, yeah, we always want the fancy.
Gosh, yes.
And it's
And you know why we always want the
yeah.
fancy, Michelle? Because we're human.
Yeah.
We're human. We have been taught to chase the shiny object, to chase the new thing. Why? Because it catches our attention and our peripheral vision. And we're like, oh, what's that? I want to go look at that.
Mm-hmm.
There is no one on planet Earth today that doesn't know you should eat more vegetables than you're eating. There's no one that doesn't know that. If you have made it this far in life that you don't know that, what it tells me is that you were born in the last week. Okay, like literally, you were born in the last week and you're like, oh, vegetables, what are these? I don't even know. Everything's new to me. My eyesight hasn't even fully formed, right? Here's the thing. We know so much of this stuff as business owners. People ask me all the time. They're like, Joey, I read your book. I saw your speech. I went to your workshop. You know, respectfully, none of it was rocket science. I'm like, oh, you're absolutely right. None of it is stuff that you don't already know. I'm just trying to encourage you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get you to actually do the thing that you know you should do that, by the way, you did when you first started.
Mm-hmm.
When your business had 1 client, 2 clients, 5 clients, you did this. You cared about them because there was more time. When you only have 1 client, all you're thinking about all day, every day is that client.
Yeah.
It's when we grow that we stop having the time to focus on an individualized level, which means we start talking about things like systems and process and automation. We never think about automating one relationship. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to build an email sequence for my 1 customer. I'm just going to write them the email.
Right.
But as we grow, we get caught up in the, well, this will make it easier if I just do the same thing to everyone. And we miss out on all those things that worked so well when we were starting.
I have a question that I like to ask companies I work with, which is, so oftentimes lead flow, like that lead flow can be a big focus and they can feel a little stuck on tactics. And I'll say, you know, if you had to go out and get 5 clients today, what would you had to? Like business would shut down if you did not. You know, it may take a second, but typically we can find some tactics. Well, I'd go to a brewery where people are hanging out with their dogs and I'd introduce myself and I'd talk to them about it and I'd try this, or I'd go on Instagram and tell my story. And oftentimes you're just so on the point. It's the application of what I know to the behavior, which is what really matters, is that output, because we know. But
yeah. And here's the thing. I'll bring it back to what I was saying about trying to be curious before you get critical. For all of our friends listening in who are like, oh, gosh, I know this stuff. I'm an idiot. Why don't I do it? Like, oh, my gosh, Joey, you're right. Michelle, you're right. If I would just go back to the basics, give yourself a little grace.
yes.
Give yourself a little grace. It's hard. You have chosen the difficult path.
Mm.
Being an entrepreneur, starting your own business, running your own business, having a side hustle, walking dogs, you're entrepreneurial. That is the non-normal path in our society
Mm.
today. Give yourself a little grace that there are going to be times where you get it right and there are going to be times where you don't get it right. And that's okay. The comforting thing I find is that if I come back to basics, if I come back to the things that I know work, if I come back to the things that I know would light me up, would light my spouse up, would light my kids up, would light my neighbor up, chances are pretty good those are going to light my customers up too. Why? Because humans are humans are humans. It brings us back to where our conversation started. It's easy to get lost in the AI. It's easy to get lost in the technology and the automation and the systems and the process. And those things are all great. I'm not denigrating any of those. But don't hesitate to come back to what are just the basic things that people like? Well, they like their pet. They like feeling like they matter. They like feeling appreciated. They like feeling seen, heard, valued. You can deliver all of those things to every one of your customer with an investment of $0. It just requires an investment of effort and intentionality. That's all it requires.
I think that brings us to the perfect point to make a big announcement about the summit, as I know we are winding down here in just a moment. Listeners, a very exciting announcement that is coming out with this podcast, but Joey live streams workshop for the DogCo Summit, we are now going to be able to offer virtual tickets. Woohoo!
Super exciting. Yay. If you can't come in person, which by the way, come in person. We are going to have so much fun together. We are going to hang out. It is going to be a fabulous event. We're going to have a great time. But I also know that you might be looking at your calendar going, I just can't make it work. Just logistically, it is humanly impossible for me to make it there for the actual event. You can join us virtually. It'll be great.
Yes. So yes, please come in person. If you can't make it though, there will be an option to get all of this amazing knowledge. I'd be remiss if I did not thank Time to Pet for their sponsorship, which made this possible. Thank you so much, Time to Pet. Joey, I cannot wait to meet you in person. Thank you for being part of the DogCo Summit and for your knowledge today and coming on the podcast. This was a true delight.
Michelle, thank you so much. Thanks to everybody who is listening in. I look forward to seeing all of you in person in September or virtually in September, or if for some reason you just can't make it work in person or virtually, that we get the chance to cross paths at a future summit event.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much.